And welcome back. 11:45. We'll get back started here with the next session, and we'll be talking about the FAA's helicopter modernization program. So we have Wayne Radke, Nolan Crawford, and Dante Fontenot, and I think even Mr. Mike Webb as well. So with that being said, you have the floor, sir.
All right, thank you. Good morning. I'm Wayne Radke. I work for the Flight Standards Service. I'm a section manager in the Flight Procedures and Airspace Group, which is part of Flight Technologies and Procedures Division. First off, I want to thank the U.S. Helicopter Safety Team for allowing us some time today to present our topic and talk a little bit about helicopter modernization program. This modernization program came about as a result of some work that Flight Standards was doing with the Aeronautical Information Services and Office of Airports. We were working on improving and are still working on improving our data collection for some of our FAA databases that we're going to talk a little bit about this morning. And during the process, we identified some areas that needed to be updated to allow our policy and guidance to catch up with the advancement of helicopter technology. As you know, the helicopter technology has jumped out there and advanced in front of guidance and rules and other things that the FAA has been doing for a number of years. And we want to make it clear that while Flight Standards is the lead for this initiative, we don't own all the guidance and the policy involved. So therefore, we're relying heavily on building strong collaborative relationships with both our internal and external stakeholders to try to influence these improvements that we need to make in this area. So the important thing for everyone to realize this morning, I think, with this group is that industry's involvement is critical to the success of this initiative. And that's why we're here today, to provide some information to you all about this initiative and hopefully start some collaboration, and you guys get to know some of the folks that are involved in this project. So without further delay, I want to introduce the lead for the helicopter modernization program, Dante Fontenot. Dante, all yours.
Hey, good morning. So like Wayne was saying, we're part of the modernization team. I'm the lead on it. And the next slide here is what we're all about. You know, we're conducting IFR operations in the VFR airports, and we're doing that already as we jump into this. And the FAA and the service providers are, you know, currently building RNAV pins, approaches, procedures, whether it's proceed VFR or if it's proceed visually. We're definitely doing that now, and that's one of the things that has been a great success, as we've seen over the years, to be able to do those successfully and not have any issues with them. So as you know, Rex, in your infinite wisdom, you tagged us after everybody's had their poke at this, and it's great that we're able to you know, come after all the conversations that have been had after this, and hopefully this will tie some of where we're at with what we're trying to do with the modernization team, with a lot of these groups that have been talking already. So our desire is to eventually be able to allow for procedures to be developed with non-precision and precision criteria to terminate at a heliport versus doing a point in space procedure. So, you know, currently we're working with, you know, airports and air traffic to create some deliverables that we're going to discuss a little more in the future. And as we look at this process, we're going to touch on heliport evaluations. The 7480 process has been discussed already. Again, the instrument flight procedures aspect of it, orders criteria, roles and responsibility, and the deliverables that we're trying to push out the end of this. So Nolan alluded to this slide earlier from past presentations, and this is really a great testimony as to where we've come, where we're at, and where we're going. And like I said earlier, that, you know, we've been doing the point in space, proceed VFR, proceed visually. We're now, if you look at it with the copter routes that Life Flight and Maine has talked about, we're right there in the cusp of that and trying to spread that across the United States. And yeah, I'm sure you all could think to past events that's happened last year, where, you know, accidents have happened where if a a pilot could have jumped on an RNP 0.3 route structure and probably could have gotten to where they needed to go a whole lot safer than what they tried to do. And then obviously to the right there is full IFR to the ground helipads is what we're after. We know that as we move across that, though, that the infrastructure is minimum with just a perceived VFR, and as you move to the right, it's going to require more infrastructure needs, and that's one of the things we're trying to work on. And our goal is to support the needs with a performance-based approach, and to get the highest minimums and the least cost investment, and the infrastructure needs to meet the lowest minimum with the greatest cost investment and the greatest infrastructure needs. So that's one of the things we're trying to pull out of this. As we look at the heliport evaluation, and we've talked about this earlier, and one of the, as the proponent, that's the starting point for these heliport evaluations, and the starting point for the LOC ID to get developed. So one of the things that we've been looking at is the process of the 7480, the notice for construction and alteration and deactivation of airports, and what that looks like. Looking at the 5010-3 airport master record, and we know that there's some issues with that. We know that there's some latency that's involved in that. We're trying to make some changes with how we're doing business there. As far as the flight technologies and procedures division, we're looking at the checklist that's out there out of the 8900 and how to make that more applicable, how to make that more centric to being able to put that into the 7480 process. We're having a much more impact on the LOC ID facilitation. We are trying to find those ones that are hung up in the process that it shouldn't take a year to get a LOC ID. That's just ridiculous, and we're recognizing that. We're trying to figure out how to expedite that. Working with the FSDOs with the checklist and how to make sure that we're standardized. And one of the ways that we're doing that is that Nolan and Larry Satterfield, a couple of guys in the FAA, I know you know Nolan, but they teach this course out at Oak City where it's available to anyone that's interested in being able to go to this course and be able to conduct these heliport evaluations. It's given us a standardization with that process. So if you're interested, contact myself or Nolan, and we can get you plugged in to be able to get to this course. They're actually doing it virtual right now because of obviously COVID. So that's I think just around the corner is the first class, I think in March, to be able to go out and conduct this course, virtually. So we're adapting and overcoming. The next one is the PEPs, the procedure evaluation pilots, mostly associated with your Hughes and Hickok guys or non-FAA providers. They're using that same checklist. We're making sure that we're standardized with how they're doing it and look at it from that aspect. And we know that it's mostly tied in with the special instrument procedure where they're going out there and they're doing the evaluation, and then from there they're constructing these special instrument procedures. So on the 7480 process, it's kind of ironic that Tom Mackey's group touched on this with some of the issues that we have. And like I said before, where the LOC ID process is too long. It's not specific to heliports. They try to take an airport-centric piece of paperwork and have adapted it to heliports, and it's just not good. We know that their information that's incorrect in the 5010 database, and he also talked about the aeronautical data information portal, the ADIP, and making some changes on that, and how to give some transparency, like it says there in the future aspect of it, is how we can see into it. We can know if it has any snags, if it's held up on somebody's desk, where the proponent can go in there and they can see where the 7480 is at, and they can say, hey, can you help us out, or what's the holdup? We as the FAA have the transparency among the different offices to be able to go in there and see what's going on with the process as well. One of the other ones there is to reduce touch points, and that also has a huge impact. And somebody brought up with the aspect of the lat longs being incorrect, the point of where the helipad is located at, it has some issues. And we are reducing that by getting rid of some of the touch points with that and making the information that's in there as accurate as possible. So expect to see some changes on how that's being done. As we look in the at the instrument flight procedures, you know, the VFR is absolutely the worst way to do business when it comes to bad weather. So we know that we need to have a better way of doing that. We know that has increased inadvertent IMC or inadvertent contact with the ground. So we know that that's not the way we want to go. So we're trying to, and we have done in the past and continue to do with the point and space procedures. And those again are a huge success with Perceived Visual and Perceived VFR. So like I said in that earlier slide, our next step is to be able to develop the non-precision approaches to IFR heliports, precision approaches to IFR heliports. And Tom kind of gave away my slide that I'm fixing to show with the IFR table that's in the new 2D that's coming out. And you can see based on this is our the direction that we want to go with this is the VFR heliport, you know, really we don't want a whole lot of change in that. We want the person that's out there that's getting a heliport built, you know, out in the middle of nowhere, Nebraska or wherever, that if they want to build their heliport, that there's really no change, that they can go ahead and go through the process as it stands right now and be able to get that heliport developed so they can get it into the database, so they can have the awareness for the before you fly app, so the UASs aren't flying over the top of it, or you know somebody's drone isn't flying over the top of it. So we're looking at it from that aspect, but it's a modular concept that we're looking at with how we're trying to do this. As they say, the airport grows or the heliport grows where he's at in Nebraska, and he's like, hey, you know, I'm doing a lot of business in and out of here. I want to be able to grow. So, you know, he can look at, you know, creating a point in space perceived VFR or point in space perceived visually and go from there and move from as the table is from right to left, and be able to get in and out of his heliport with you know, a lot easier than trying to get in and out of their VFR when in the bad weather. We talked about the survey requirements. As we increase, you know, from right to left, that the survey requirement is going to be more stringent as we move to the left, you know, going from a 2C accuracy all the way to a 1A accuracy all the way to the right. And that will help, you know, make sure that the pad is where the pad is supposed to be. And that's been again a point of discussion. As you move to the right, or excuse me, from the left to the right on this, you can see that the requirements are going to change. You know, the heliport markings, the heliport lights are going to change. You know, the requirements for the area around the helipad will have to be, you know, surveyed and more accuracy taken out in that regards. The infrastructure needs to start with like I said, the VFR designation and be achieved with a minimal infrastructure investment. So as one of the other things is that as you look at it, the last module will include a secular survey from the FAA, the 25-to-1, and we'll splay out 7,000 feet for the visual segment evaluation. And you know, those are some of the aspects of what's going to be included as we continue to move forward. That it's going to, you know, increase the minimums or decrease the minimums and reduce the risk and increase safety as we move from right to left. And it's all based on what the operator wants or what the owner wants as we look at this. So to be able to get there, we're going to have to define the infrastructure improvements to the heliport, and we're doing that in the design guide. And we're going to have to update the helicopter instrument criteria. We know that previously the helicopter instrument criteria for conventional nav aids was included in the basic instrument criteria manual, and for the area navigation criteria, it was included in the .42, the 8260.42, the U.S. standard for helicopter area navigation. And you know, that order has served us well. It's been the springboard to be able to get a lot of things done in, you know, helicopter flying industry. but unfortunately, it's you know, we need to move on with what's out there. So it's met the needs to be able to fly approaches to VFR heliports, but the minimum, you know, that is in there, it's limited. So to be able to achieve the lowest minimum, we're going to have to identify additional infrastructure and needs and approach and departure services to the helipad. So those are some of the things that we're looking at to be able to continue to push this forward. So the new criteria is going to support IFR operations to the helipad as well as point in space. Some of the efforts that we've updated the criteria also supports the congressional direction to the FAA to improve helicopter air ambulance operations. That's in HR Bill 302, Section 314. One of those, or that House bill. It was pointed out that previously the goal is to allow the user to select a level of service to support their mission, and that's that modular aspect that we showed on the earlier slide, that, you know, depending upon what you need, you know, you can move from right to left to be able to get the procedure that you're after. So the plan is to incorporate the information in the 8260.42B into the existing standards to improve the currency of the criteria and to support improvements to the helicopter criteria as it changes, and changes that are made in different criteria documents. So we're continuing to move forward on that. We expect it to be canceled upon incorporation into these orders, so we're just not going to arbitrarily get rid of it. We want to see that it's pushed into these different orders. So be expecting that. We know that the .3 is the basic instrument standard based on conventional ground-based nav aids. Its key improvements are to incorporate the benefits from the .42 for arrivals and departures for helicopter procedures based on conventional nav aids. And this hasn't been, which weren't available before this improvement. So that's one thing to be looking in the .3 as we move forward. And as we incorporate the .42 into the .19, we're going to improving on the performance-based navigations. We're updating the chart notes. We're charting the requirements into the .19. And again, this is going to improve the standardization of the notes and procedure documentation. So by merging of the helicopter departure criteria into the departure procedure program, it's going to include improvements in the criteria for all helicopter IFR users. So just keep that on the back of your mind as we move forward with this. And then lastly, on the .58, you know, that's the last and biggest benefit is to add this helicopter criteria into the .58, which is the master criteria for performance-based navigation. As it gets improved with new avionics are produced, helicopters are going to receive this improvement and benefit as the performance-based navigation criteria is changed. In addition to this, the PBN changes to the current criteria is being included in new helicopter criteria. So we see that as the technology's out there, and we're just a lot slow on getting the criteria changed to be able to support that. So in regards to the roles and responsibility, it should be bolded there for you that the flight standards aspect of it is really had a piece in both the airports and the ATO part of it. Either our group or Nolan or Mike or Gerald have all had a hand in working with the airports and the ATO. So it's hard to show that, but every one of those things at Airport Design Guide, you know, we've had a piece in the working on the ADIP, the Aeronautical Data Information Portal. We've had a part in that. The 7480 process, we've been working with those guys to get all these things changed with the standard survey. So they're not just arbitrarily making these changes without input from some or one of us of the helicopter modernization team. We again have had a piece in this as we push this forward. So a lot of great collaboration that we've had in doing this. I think you guys will be pleased in what we're trying to push out on the back end of this with some of these changes. There's some of the deliverables that we're looking for. Obviously, the criteria, we've been updating on that for the last, I think started coming out at the beginning of this past year. We've been working on that, improving the approach and departure capabilities. Obviously, the 7480 process has been huge. The heliport inspection process, getting things changed in there to, again, make it more helicopter centric, to be able to make it more user-friendly, to be able to change the ADIP process. We've talked about that. So some of the highlights of that. The next slide is really where we're at right now with what we're doing, and this has been a great opportunity. As you see, we're the center point for this, and we're trying to get it out to as many folks as we can. It's been great that the USHST has allowed us to be able to do this, and I'm sure through this we've been able to touch some of the industry OEMs to be able to solicit some of their input. You know, we'd like to set up an opportunity down the road. If you're on here, contact us to be able to sit down with you and kind of talk a little more in detail as to what we're trying to do to get your input on some of these things that we're trying to lean forward with. Again, looking at the FAA flight standards lines of business, we've been working across them. You know, guys like Tom Luperspec, we've rolled in here to get their input and get this moving forward. The next thing is that we know that we have top cover from overarching flight standards. We're not just going rogue with this. We know that this is a huge undertaking. We know that it's got the traction that we need to be able to push this forward. So we're just working together as a team to get this going. Last question, any questions? And I kind of blew through that, but I really would like to thank Nolan Crawford, Mike Webb, and Gerald Pauly for being such a great team on this. They've been great. They've a wealth of knowledge. So I'm just the mouthpiece for this, but I'll let them have a shot to, in case I missed anything, they can double back on it and cover anything I may have missed.
Dante, thank you very, very much for that brief. Very good information. I see that Tom has asked Mike Webb to update on the TK versus ZK route designation. Mike, could you do that?
Yes, the TK is the public route designation. ZK is for special routes. The way that the FAA keeps track of public routes and special routes, specials are maintained by flight standards, public are maintained by the air traffic organization. And so they're the same, they have the same criteria, however, it's how they are managed within the FAA. And so since this first route in Maine is a special, and that's being done more for, not that it's unique criteria, but that they wanted to limit who could use it, so that the air traffic could learn while Live Flight of Maine are using the route. Now, at a later time, if we want to make all the routes public routes, then this route, the route that's being worked on this time, it would just be converted to a public route. It would not need to be redesigned because it's being made with the very same criteria that we have for all of the helicopter routes. This is special only because of how the users wanted to implement this first one.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that clarification on that. Open to the floor for any questions for either Dante or Nolan or Mike or anyone else within the FAA.
Hey, Rex, the one thing I would like to make sure people understand is this is not an overnight project. This thing is modular in nature. we're going to be touching pretty much every line of business within inside the FAA. So you may see the products being completed at a different rate for different things. As Dante was saying, you know, we're heavily engaged with airports on data side of the house right now, trying to figure out how to clean up those touch points, trying to clean up the data that we know is messed up out there right now. At the same time, Mike on his side of the fence is heavily engaged with the criteria side. At the same time that we are working with the designers on the FAA side, and on a daily or on a monthly basis, I should say, of late, we've been working with the third-party designers. We've been reaching out to all the FSDOs for the operators here on the line. A lot of your FSDO folks have been at least briefed in this process and requested information from them for this process. So as Dante said, reach out to us. You know, we're reaching out to all the organizations, you know, whether it's HAI, USHST, HSAC, you know, outreach is a big thing for us. So please, please, please don't be shy. Let us know what your concerns are. That way, we're only a few, you know, folks. That way we can get input from across the board because we can't think of everything.
Yeah, I think just to dogpile on what Nolan's saying, I mean, we're only looking at this through our perspective as to what we see on a day-to-day basis as the need. So if we're missing something that the industry needs or wants, or where we're missing the boat, that's I can't you know, jump up and down on that enough to say let us know, because we have the traction, we have the desire, the need to push this forward. So you know, let's take advantage of it.
No, I appreciate that, Dante. I noticed on one of your slides you had the PEP program, where the PEP is the Performance Evaluation Pilot Program. I know most of the PEPs in the U.S., but it's very IFR centric. And I've had this discussion with some of your counterparts there, Mike Webb being one. What is the possibility, or is there any thoughts of creating a VFR PEP? Not someone that specifically deals with IFR, but as a VFR PEP that augments the FAA in looking at heliports and soon vertiports at some point down the road, going through the educational process that you spoke of at the Transportation Safety Institute in Oklahoma City. Any thoughts on that?
I know we've had discussions on it, and we've been, you know, looking around it. Nothing concrete yet that say, yeah, that's the direction we're going to go, but know that we're looking at it hard.
No, I appreciate that. I know that that would definitely take some of the workload off of the FAA if there was a third party that could be certified to do some of that work. Along some of the other discussions you had, I know that the U.S. helicopter safety team has worked very hard to identify opportunities for improvement. You touched on several. I think the 7480 and the airport master record and the 5010 form are some that we've dove into the deep end. And we have sent a lot of recommendations down the line. And like you said, and Nolan and Mike remind me this on a regular basis, it does take time, but we are seeing some improvement. We're seeing a direction that we have been pushing for a while. So I appreciate that. Kudos to our friends on the FAA, from the FAA, that are on the call. Thank you so much for the efforts in helping us with this. Tom, what's your
Yeah, thanks, Rex. So thanks for this presentation. I think this is, you know, over the years we've done this, and you know, and Rachel, you know, our sort of the third leg of the stool of keeping this committee going, Rachel Tester, reminded me that she had created that IFR triad slide back in 2011. So we've been working, but what really, you know, struck me in this presentation is the amount of integration that's happened, that we've, you know, gone from sort of a siloed, we're talking about this project or that project, and I think that's really important. I know that Nolan and Mike have been, very strong over the last, several years to say, you got to tell us what you need, and we'll work on it. But, we saw this when Mike Hilbert presented the strategic plan for the NAS, and then, then there was an RTCA, and neither of them had helicopters, the RTCA for PBN routes, and so we were quickly to get that into that space. And we know, just like there is an AIP program, we need an HIP program. And so I really applaud, Dante, Nolan, Mike and company. I mean, this work, it's to see the amount of integration. And there is these other pieces of integration that certainly, we've identified in Maine that, and through the FAA group, to bring ATO into it, and, the air traffic and the people that actually have to manage this, once it's set up, and then all the work that needs to be done in communications that to be able to properly surveil aircraft and communicate with them is another whole big work order. So it's great to see the integration of all of these efforts into a standard piece. And I think on the industry side, we need to support the work and help make sure it keeps going.